Ask a word of wisdom from our Heavenly Father in Yeshua's name. Today's lecture is going to be about the altar. In 1 Kings 13:1, there was an altar built by a king named Jeroboam. And he built it in Bethel so that people would not have to go to Jerusalem to worship the true God. So we're going to look at that passage in this lecture. So you take a couple verses back from 1 Kings and you go to 1 Kings 12:28. Now it talks about what the king Jeroboam did. He was the first king of the northern 10 tribes of Israel. So this is when they first split, right after Solomon was the ruler over all of the kings of Israel. Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. And he said unto them, It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So now they have switched who the true God is to a false God. We have something similar going on today. On August 28th, 2018, the first red heifer was born in Israel. Now, this is really important to students of prophecy because they've had 70 years to get a red heifer, and they could have gotten one at any time. They're not that difficult, I don't think. I mean, they're all over. There's actually a video I can show. Maybe I can insert the clip here, where they say there's red heifers born all over the world.
For 2,000 years, we've been waiting for a perfect red heifer, a parah adumah. You know, people think that finding a real red heifer is impossible. But the truth is, there are thousands of red cows throughout the world. Go to Google and search for images of red cows, and you'll see red Angus in America, you'll see Shetland in the Scottish Highlands, and you'll see red cattle in Norfolk Island, just to mention a few. There are many red cows throughout the world, and the challenge is not to find a particular red cow. The challenge is to raise a perfect red heifer according to the exact biblical requirements here in the land of Israel. Well, it's time to stop waiting and start doing. The Temple Institute has embarked upon an unprecedented historical project to raise a herd of red cows here in the land of Israel. After decades of intensive study and research, the Institute has partnered with an Israeli cattleman and, using state-of-the-art technique and under strict rabbinical supervision, we're going to raise a herd of red cows here in Israel. We're going to select a proper candidate from this herd for the fulfillment of the biblical requirements of the commandments of the red heifer. Make no mistake, this project is nothing less than the first stage of the reintroduction of biblical purity into the world, the prerequisite for the rebuilding of the Holy Temple.
In 1 Kings 12:31, it says, And he made an house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi. So I do not believe that the people that live in the land of Israel are both of the tribe of Israel, which is 12 tribes, also of the tribe of Judah, and also of the tribe of Levi. They can't be from all the tribes. The tribes went out to separate places. They each have separate identities. They are not all just one lineage.
Hanukkah is about the struggle for the purification of the temple. And it's about the struggle for sovereignty over the land of Israel. You know, more is being accomplished in our generation towards the rebuilding of the temple than ever before in history. Again, I know many of you follow the work of the Temple Institute. You can at templeinstitute.org and at our Facebook page, and you can subscribe to our weekly YouTube Torah lessons. But this has been going on for 3 decades. And the Temple Institute is at the forefront of leading the way in preparing for the Holy Temple, not only in the construction of vessels, but also in scientific research and technological advancements. We have created all of the architectural blueprints for the building of the temple. We have established a school for training the Kohanim, the young men of priestly descent, in the service of the temple. We have recreated the incense offering, the baking of the showbread, revitalized these ancient commandments. I can actually share with you, this is new and something that has not been shared with American audiences, but we actually have a red heifer. I don't know if you're aware of the significance of this. This is a biblical prerequisite based on Numbers 19. In order to actually reestablish purity, it's necessary for us to have a perfect red heifer. This has been the product of many decades of preparation.
King Jeroboam had a vision. King Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah, which was a month before this. And he offered upon the altar. You need to remember, we're focused upon here. God wants his altar. Does not want it polluted. So did he in Bethel, which means house of God, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made, and placed them in Bethel, the priests of the high places, which he had made. So you got to think, what is going on today is very similar to what Jeroboam did. Jeroboam was not of the tribe of Judah. Jeroboam was not of he might have been because he was the son of Solomon, but he was not a Levite, and there were no Levites in this area. So he has basically stolen the identity, stolen the altar of God. And so the people in Israel today who hate Christ, they have a vision. They want to be veneered. They want to put on a big show so that everybody can see how they are the tribe of Levi and Judah and all of Israel put together. And so they don all these white robes and these white caps, and they get the menorah, and they get all the items of the old temple from the Old Testament. They need all the items. They need all the procedures. They need all the blood covenants. They need all of it to establish that they are of the true chosen people of God. Now, this was a great sin, and it made Israel to sin. And it says that 23 times in the books of Kings, 23 times they did this sin that Jeroboam did. They started way back in 938 BC, and then 300 years they polluted the altar by doing this. And you're going to see in 1 Kings 13, and behold, there came a man of God out of Judah by the word of the Lord unto Bethel. And Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. So there's Jeroboam pretending he's a Levitical priest. He just declared, I am the Levitical priest. I'm doing this in God's holy sanctuary. And a man of God came. How did the man of God come? He came by the word of the Lord. That is how we come. There's the only way to come to the knowledge of God is by his word. So what did this man of God say? He's not identified. It's not Elijah. It's just a man of God from Judah, true Judah. And it says there in 1 Kings 13:2, and he cried against the altar, which the word of the Lord, and said, O altar, altar, thus saith the Lord, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, And upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. So he's making a prophecy on the altar. This prophecy is going to be for today. It's going to be all fit into what's going on today. So we shall look at the next. Okay, so in 1 Kings 13, it says, and he gave a sign the same day. I wonder what the sign was. Saying, this is the sign which the Lord hath spoken. Behold, the altar shall be rent, and the ashes that are upon it shall be poured out. The ashes are the sign. So I need you to remember that as we go on to the next verse in 1 Kings here. 1 Kings 13:5, the altar was also rent, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign. So the ashes being poured out is the sign to the people that this is all going to be destroyed. It wasn't destroyed that day. Okay, the man of God was there. He was talking to Jeroboam, was pretending to be a Levitical priest, and he's not. And he says, this is all going to be torn down, and here's your sign. When these ashes are poured out, then you know it's going to be done. But this prophecy didn't happen for 300 years. Okay, that didn't work out. 300 years is how long that took to come to pass. So, I don't know if I have a highlighter here. Oh, there's my highlighter. 3. Okay, it doesn't work on that. So that's a long time that Jeroboam got to repeat this sin and tell the children of Israel cows saved them from Egypt, that a cow is their new savior. Think about that. They did it in the wilderness. So this day is a polluted day. It was not a day that God designed for everybody to celebrate. So let's look at this. 8th month and the 15th day. This is the day that Jeroboam developed, and it happened for 300 years. Over 23 times recorded in Scripture. They did this awful cow worship over and over and over again for 300 years. Now, Antiochus Epiphanes, on this very day, he is also known as the little horn because of what he did in the temple and what day he did it. What day did he do it? He did it on this day, the 8th month and the 15th day. It's about November 2nd on our calendar. That's when you look at the Hebrew solar calendar, which I have shown in a few videos before, but maybe I could show that again. So the point here is that through all this time that the altar is going to lay waste. And Haggai and Zechariah are going to come along many, many years later. Almost, I would say, 400 plus years later. And they're going to tell Ezra, what's going on here? Why haven't you guys rebuilt the altar? It is laid waste all this time. And in the 8th, now Josiah had already torn down that altar in about 638 BC. So that one has been torn down. But it's still, his altar is still laying waste. So Haggai and Zechariah. Now Zechariah comes in the 8th month. Now what are they probably doing in the 8th month? They're not worshiping the true God. They don't have the true altar set up, do they? So I'm wondering if they had returned to this practice way back in 938 BC. In the 2nd year of Darius came the word of the Lord unto Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo the prophet, saying, the Lord hath been sore displeased with your fathers. So he came in the 8th month to tell them God was displeased with their fathers because they still are celebrating the cows after all this time. Haggai again says here, you looked for much, and lo, it came to little. And when you brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because mine house that is waste, and you run every man to his own house. So still, they still haven't built God's altar. This is the 2300 days in Daniel. Also, the subject is cleansing the altar. Brings us to the 7 weeks. Now, when we are looking at the 7 weeks, or the 7 years, many people say that it begins with the covenant being confirmed, and they say this is a peace treaty. But if a covenant is confirmed, it means it's already in existence. And the confirmation is, yes, I'm going to follow through with it. So what covenant is being confirmed? In the Septuagint, it says that the covenant is confirmed over many weeks. So in the context of Daniel chapter 9, the weeks are 70 weeks or 490 years. So if there are many of those, that could easily cover the 2,000-year period, basically covering the gap in the Septuagint. So the Septuagint verse is this long compared to the King James verse, which is this long. Okay, there's things cut out of the King James version, which is why people don't understand who the he is in the beginning. The subject is not he. The subject is the covenant. In the Septuagint, that's clear. It says, and the covenant. It's the subject of the verse, which is salvation. How do I know the covenant is salvation and not a peace treaty? Well, number one, there's a different word for peace treaty in the Hebrew. Number two, the subject of the chapter is in verse 4. It's the salvation covenant. God is the keeper. It doesn't say Satan's the keeper of the covenant. It says God is the keeper. So you focus your mind on the subject of the chapter, and when you get to Daniel 9:27, it's simple. It was in 33 AD when Christ died on the cross. That is when he confirmed the covenant. And then over many weeks, it grows in strength and in breadth. In the Septuagint, it says this. So remember, the Septuagint verse, huge, gives you a lot of information. The King James verse is literally cut apart by the rabbis of the 1st century in the Council of Jamnia. I think it's Rabbi Akiba, and they put it in the Seder Olam, which is a Jewish commentary, where they decided that the Septuagint was no good, and they decided this was the new translation that everybody in the world should follow. It's up to you whether you want to read it, but it is much clearer, which gives us the definition of the beginning of the last 7 years is basically there is no event at the beginning of the 7 years. The event that you want to look for is the beginning of the 2300 days. There was a very specific event given on a very specific day, December 11th, 2018. Now, they dedicated an altar to a false god, not the true God. The altar was not dedicated to the true God. It makes him sick to see them take a lamb, rip the lamb apart until only you have a leg, and then just take this little piece of a leg and throw it on the fire. They were supposed to put the entire animal on the altar, and the priest was supposed to take his hand and put it on the head of the animal and pray for the sins of the people. That is how it was supposed to be done. It was not done that way. It was literally thrown from 3 feet away onto the fire. So by reason of transgression, this is Daniel chapter 8, the subject of the chapter. What is going to start the 2300 days short fulfillment, not the long fulfillment, which I have discussed in different videos. But what is going to start this period of time? It is when they take the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. So what is their reason for doing the altar? It is so they can establish themselves, their vision, as the Levites, as the Judah tribe, and as all the tribes of Israel, all combined in one. How convenient. Now we have another verse in Daniel chapter 12. Daniel chapter 12 verse 11 says that the daily sacrifice is going to be taken away, and that's going to trigger a timeline. Now, it doesn't say it's going to trigger 7 years. I want you to note that Daniel does not say that Satan is going to have 7 years. If anything, he's only going to have 3.5 years. But that Satan's time itself has been shortened. So that is going to be at the end of the chart in this half a period here. And I'm going to talk about that. But basically, this middle point here is the beginning of the last half of the 7 years, if you will. This is the beginning point where the daily sacrifice is taken away. How can they take the daily sacrifice away? It's not a literal temple where they have set up sacrifices. It is the sacrifice done in 33 AD. Remember this covenant made over here? This is the subject. You have to remember that subject, that salvation covenant. But what if there's a group of people that say their sacrifice will forgive your sins? And that is the red heifer, which they have not done in 70 plus years. This was the sign. Remember the ashes from 1 Kings 13? It says when those ashes are poured out, when they kill the red heifer, they're going to take the ashes and pour them out to purify the people. And according to 1 Kings 13, that is our sign. And now remember, during this 2300 days, the Lord's house is waste. That's from Haggai 1:9. It's a period of time where the altar, which is the subject of all of this, is laying waste. And it needs to be cleansed at the end of the 2300 days. So this is where Daniel 11:14 comes in. They shall exalt themselves to establish the vision. Now by saying they are of Judah and of Israel and of the tribe of Levi, they are exalting themselves. They can't possibly be all the 12 tribes of Israel, Judah, and Levi. They're separate. They have been scattered. The Bible says they have been scattered all over the earth. Whoever they are, they've been scattered. So they are exalting themselves to establish the vision. What vision are they trying to establish? The fact that they are the chosen people, that they are correct in everything that they are saying. And so this is, and of course the end of Daniel 11:14 says that they're going to come to a point that they just fall apart. They fall. And that falling is the same exact thing as the horn being broken in Daniel chapter 8. Because when the horn is broken, 4 have to come up for it. And what 4 are those? Those are the 4 angels that come out of the river Euphrates at the 6th trump. This is when Satan and his angels are cast down. Revelation 12:9, Matthew 24:15. Jesus Christ told us there is one event that you need to watch for. And he says that is when the abomination of desolation stands in the holy place where he ought not. So that tells us that this event is for the last half of the 5 months, which I have covered in several videos, but I'll cover again in this one. You just have to remember when Jesus waiting for my computer to load. Come on, computer. Okay. So when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, Jesus Christ told us that it's one event. It doesn't say that this abomination is going to come for 2.5 months and hide behind the scenes and do sneaky things and then a great arrival. It's only one arrival, according to Jesus. So again, I have shown in previous videos the 5 months is the seventh seal. It's the last hour in heaven. The first half of it is the war in heaven. That is how the angels have to be released from the pit. Hell has to be released from the bottomless pit. They are all locked up. Jude chapter 6, I think, says they're locked up. They can't just go to heaven. They are completely locked. So the only way for them to make war in heaven is to be released. And we are told in Revelation 9:2, literally, Satan has a key. He goes to the bottomless pit and he opens it, and out of it comes smoke, and in the smoke is the locusts. They come out of the pit. And then in verse 9, we are told where they go. They go running to the battle. What battle is that? That is the war in heaven. So then we have the sixth trumpet in the middle, and that is when they are cast to earth. Both Satan and the angels are cast to the earth for the arrival that Jesus warned us about. When you shall see the abomination of desolation stand in the holy place, that is right here in the middle. And then we have the great hour of temptation. Once he arrives to the earth is the hour of temptation. And the vials kick off, all in order, and the true Christ arrives at the seventh trump. So there you have the seventh seal explained succinctly, and it explains everything of what's happening in the other dimension to what's happening in our dimension. So I hope you enjoyed that. You have to remember they are trying to establish the vision, and that's why Satan is cast to the earth, to help them to heal that wound to one head, which is them trying to establish the vision on the Temple Mount. And he's going to fix that. He's going to give them their treasure, their Temple Mount. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that.